Will was loved by Electra. Still. In a hurry. The letter wasn't dramatic or manipulative. It was honest. Very much so. Electra wrote about pride, distance, and misunderstandings. She wrote about the night things went wrong and how neither of them had the guts to fight for what they had. She said she was letting Will go, not because she wanted to, but because she thought she had to. Daphne was sitting on the edge of her bed, and tears were silently running down her face as she read the last line. The truth was that Will had never gotten that letter, which no one else knew. Daphne had stopped it. Not on purpose at first. Someone at work had given it to her by mistake, along with production notes and call sheets. And when she understood what it was and what it meant, she made a decision. A self-centered one. It had felt small back then. For a short time, Daphne had told herself that she just needed time to sort out her feelings and figure out why her heart raced every time Will smiled at her, or why his laugh stayed in her head long after he left the room. She didn't want to keep the letter for a long time. Just long enough for the time to pass. But what had been moments had turned into weeks. Weeks of silence. And silence turned into destruction. There were rumors all over the place. Will and Electra didn't talk much. Their bond, which had been strong before, had broken because of a lack of understanding. Daphne, who was in the middle of it all, could no longer act like she wasn't to blame. She carefully folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Her hand stopped shaking as something inside her finally came to terms with the truth. She didn't have the right to ruin someone's happiness just because she loved them. It asked for the opposite, if anything. Will saw that Electra had changed before he understood it. There was no screaming or crying in public, so it wasn't that bad. It was less noisy than that. She stopped saying the end of his sentences. They stopped looking him in the eye when they talked. She didn't pull away when he reached for her hand, but she also didn't hold on. It scared him more than anything else could have. He went over and over the last few months in his head, looking for the point when everything changed. The fight that never ended. He thought she would never reply to the message. The distance that grew between them like a living thing. He had told himself that she needed time to herself, that love meant being patient. But waiting was starting to feel a lot like losing. When Daphne texted him and asked if they could talk, really talk, he said yes right away. Daphne had always told him the truth. Steady. A friend he could trust. She would say if something was wrong. They met at a quiet cafe off the main road, where the smell of espresso and wet pavement filled the air. Daphne got there early, and the envelope was hidden deep in her bag like a secret she was finally ready to share. She almost lost her nerve when Will walked in. He looked worn out. Not in a physical way but in an emotional way. The kind of tiredness that comes from loving someone and not knowing how to get to them anymore. Guilt turned in her chest. "Hey," he said softly as he sat across from her. "You sounded serious." Daphne said, "I am." And her voice was steady even though there was a storm inside her. "Before I say anything, I need you to promise me that you will listen. All the way through." That made him stop. But he did nod. "Okay." She took a deep breath. Then one more. She then took the envelope out of her bag and put it on the table between them. Will frowned. "What is this?" Daphne said. "Something that should have gotten to you a long time ago." Her voice broke, but only a little. "And something I should have given you as soon as I got it." He picked it up and realized what it was. The way the letters look. The name. Electra. He held his breath as he opened the letter and started to read. Daphne saw every feeling cross his face. Hope, shock, regret, and desire. He didn't say anything for a long time after he was done. She thought I didn't care," he said finally, his voice rough. "She thought I left." Daphne's eyes were full of tears. "I'm really sorry, Will. I never meant for it to go this far." "Did you read it?" he asked quietly. "What?" She nodded her head. "Yes." "And you still have it?" "Yes." The word hit them hard. "Why?" he asked, not angrily but painfully. Daphne swallowed. "Because I was scared. Because I thought that if you knew how she felt, you would go back to her. And a part of me didn't want that." Will leaned back in his chair and thought about it. Hurt flashed across his face, but it wasn't just because of Daphne. He realized how close he had come to losing everything because he had been quiet. Finally, he said, "I appreciate your honesty. But this changed everything." "I know," Daphne said in a low voice. And if you never forgive me, I will understand. But I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do something about it. Not right now. Never. He suddenly stood up and put the letter back in the envelope. I need to find her. Daphne nodded. I know. She felt something inside her break and something else finally heal as he walked away. Will knocked on Electra's door while she was at home. She didn't think he would come. In fact, she had been trying not to think about him at all. When she opened it and saw him standing there with his eyes wide and his breath shaky, her heart almost stopped. Can we talk? He asked. She thought about it for a moment before moving aside. The air inside was full of unspoken words. Will didn't waste any time. He took the letter out of his jacket and gave it to her. He said softly, "This explains everything." She opened her eyes wide. Did you get it? Today. Her face crumpled as she realized what was going on. I thought you didn't care. I thought I didn't matter anymore. He said, you always mattered. I just didn't know you were waiting. Tears flowed freely now that years of pain were coming to an end. They talked for hours. About being proud. About being afraid. About how easy it is to lose love when people stop thinking they deserve it. And they found their way back to each other somewhere between saying sorry and forgiving each other. Daphne watched from afar in the days that followed. She saw Will smile again. How freely Electra laughed. And even though it hurt a lot, she felt at peace knowing she had done the right thing. It's not always about being picked when you love someone. It's not always easy to let go. And for the first time in a long time, Daphne felt like she could do anything. Daphne didn't think she would be forgiven. She didn't even think anyone would understand. She thought she deserved distance, and that's what she expected. And distance came quickly, quietly, and in ways that hurt more than yelling ever could. Will stopped calling. Not out of malice. Not even mad. But every time he thought about Daphne, he also thought about how close he had come to losing Electra for good. And that fear had dug itself deep into his chest, making it feel sharp and unmovable. He needed time to rebuild, time to trust his own judgment again, and time to stop going over and over every time he had told Daphne something and every conversation that now felt ruined. Electra saw it too. She hasn't been around, Electra said one night while she and Will were sitting on the couch with their legs tangled up and their minds still catching up to where their hearts were. I mean Daphne. Will nodded. I think she's leaving us alone. Electra looked at his face. Or maybe she's scared to face me. That hit harder than Will thought it would. Daphne didn't want Electra to punish her. But real forgiveness was hard. Needed to be faced. And fighting meant reopening wounds that Electra had only just begun to heal. Will said carefully, she didn't do it to hurt you. Electra stared at him. She still did. Then there was silence. Not the kind that makes you lie, but the kind that makes you tell the truth. I don't hate her, Electra said quietly. But I don't trust her either. And I still don't know what that means. Will took her hand. We'll figure it out. But he knew that some things couldn't be figured out together, even as he said it. Some fights were alone. Daphne got to work right away. More hours. Less time off. No more long talks. She became organized, professional, and emotionally distant. The best version of herself she had perfected long before Will and Electra came into her life. But at night, when everything was quiet, the weight came back. She kept playing the cafe scene over and over. The moment Will's eyes turned dark with disappointment. Not anger, not hate, but something worse. Loss. She told herself that she would do it again. That giving the letter back was the right thing to do. That didn't help the pain go away. Daphne heard someone say her name softly behind her one afternoon as she was getting ready to leave. Daphne. She turned around. Electra was standing there. Not mad. Not chilly. Worse. Be calm. Electra said. I was hoping we could talk. Daphne's heart sank into her stomach. Of course. They went to a small park a few blocks away that was neutral. It was the kind of place where people passed through but didn't stay long. Daphne liked that. There is less of a chance that you will be seen. Not as likely to break down. At first, they sat on opposite ends of a bench, with a lot of history between them that neither of them had chosen. Electra started. I want you to know that I appreciate you giving Will the letter. Daphne nodded. I should have done it sooner. Electra said. Yes, you should have. The truth hurt, but Daphne didn't back down. Electra went on. I'm not here to punish you. But I need to know something. Daphne looked up. Ask. Did you ever plan to keep it from him forever? Daphne didn't expect the question to hit her so hard. No, she said in a low voice. But I didn't know when I would be strong enough to let it go. Electra took that in. That means you knew how much it would cost him. And me. Yes. Then why give it back at all? Electra asked. Why not just let things go? Daphne's voice broke. Because seeing him fall apart almost killed me. And because real love can't last on lies. Even ones that are easy to use. Electra looked at her for a long time. I believe you, she finally said. But faith doesn't fix things. I know. Electra got up. I don't know what our relationship is like right now. If there is one. But I wanted you to hear this from me, not through silence. Daphne had to swallow hard. Thanks. Daphne felt something change as Electra walked away. Not a solution. But let go. Will try to stay in the moment. He and Electra were carefully rebuilding their relationship, choosing honesty even when it was hard and vulnerability, even when it felt dangerous. They talked more now. About fears. About making mistakes. They were both scared to say what they thought about the future. But Daphne kept coming back to his mind. Not in a romantic way anymore. But as a lesson. One night Will lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Electra slept next to him. He realized something that made him uneasy. Daphne didn't steal the letter on purpose. She took it because she loved it. And that scared him more than anything else. Because it made him think about how easily lines could be crossed when feelings weren't spoken. How close could be dangerous when honesty was put off. He called her the next morning. Daphne almost didn't say anything. Almost. Hey, she said quietly. Will said. Hey. Can we get together? She thought for a moment. If this is about, he said. It's about closure. Both of us. They met at the cafe where it all began. No envelopes this time. No secrets. Will said. I've been angry. Not just at you. At me. At how little I did. How willing I was to assume instead of ask. Daphne was quiet and listened. He went on. What you did was wrong. But it also showed me something about myself that I didn't want to see. She raised her head. What is that? I relied on you too much. That I let you be my emotional safety net instead of fighting for the person I loved. She had tears in her eyes. I never wanted to take her place. I know, he said softly. Okay, I forgive you. The word opened something in her chest that she didn't know was locked. Will added. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. She nodded her head. I wouldn't want them to. They sat quietly, not awkwardly, until the end. Daphne felt lighter than she had in months when they stood up to leave. Not because she had been forgiven, but only because people could finally see her clearly. After that, life didn't settle down. They never do. Electra had trouble with her lingering insecurity. Will had a hard time with guilt. Daphne had a hard time letting herself want something again, anything, without worrying that it would hurt someone else. But something was different. The truth had survived being out in the open. And that was important. In a world full of secrets, staying alive was a victory in its own right. Daphne thought that forgiving would make her feel better. It was more like being in the middle of a storm with debris everywhere. The sky looking calm but not really, and no clear idea of what was still standing. She kept hearing Will say, I forgive you, but things won't go back to the way they were. She didn't want them to. And still she was sad about them. Her days got quieter and more settled. No more looking at each other across rooms. No joking around with each other while pretending to be professional. She stopped waiting for Will to come through the doors. Stopped thinking about what could have happened if timing, bravery, and honesty had been different. But the heart isn't a machine. It won't stop just because someone tells it to. Some nights, Daphne woke up from dreams where the letter didn't exist. In those dreams, Electra had left on her own, and Will had turned to Daphne not because he was confused or needed comfort, but because he wanted to. It was hard to get rid of those dreams because they felt so real. And when she opened her eyes, the pain came back even stronger. She told herself that wanting was a habit. One she would break. Electra, on the other hand, Learned that getting someone back didn't mean going back to the way things were before. She loved Will. That was never in doubt. But she was learning that love didn't erase memories. It didn't change the months she spent thinking she wasn't good enough. And that silence was the answer she needed. There were times, small and quiet, when I started to doubt.